This is application of calculus or optimization, maximum and minimum. Basically, this is how to find the turning point. Turning point, we make first derivative equals to 0. So it's application of that turning point. The question says a large cruise ship uses fuel at a cost of 4x squared rand per liter. Okay, this is fuel per liter. And then it says where x is the speed of the ship in kilometers. Right. Other operation costs includes labor, amount to 1,000 per hour. Hint, distance equals to speed times time. Well, that is good. Now they say show that the total cost for a trip of 500 kilometers is given by that. All right, so we need to know the equation for the cost. So first, let's just call that cost. We need to know how much is the cost. Now, one thing they told me here, they say a large cruise ship uses fuel at a cost of that. So this is the cost in rand per hour. In rand per hour. So yeah, so if I figure, remember, in rand per hour. So in 1 hour, that will be the cost. Isn't it right? So what I'm saying that, let me put that in a yellow box. What's in a yellow box? That is the cost of 4x squared rand per hour. So that is like telling me for 1 hour, that means you'll be paying 4x squared. Let's call that rent. Is that what it's saying? Right? That's what it's saying. Am I right?
Okay.
All right. So now, all right, we know x is the speed. Now it's telling me, you see what I need? In 2 hours, I'm going to have to double that. So that means the number of hours will determine the costs. It will determine the cost from me. Are we okay with that? All right. Now they say other costs includes labor, amount to 1,000 per hour. So labor is 1,000 rand per hour. All right. So also what I'm putting in a green box, that is another cost, but that has to do with labor. But this one says for 1 hour, you'll be charged 1,000 rand. I hope we're good. Are we good? All right. So that means I need to take the white cost and add it with the blue, to get the whole total. But the question is show that the total cost for a trip of 500 kilometers, that 500 kilometer it should be hours. Had they said the cost for 2 hours, 2 hours, I will double this amount. Then I'll double this, then add them together and get the whole total. Is that making sense to you?
So,
Yeah, so convert the kilometers to hours, kilometers to hours. So that means we need to get the time. So from here, before I can write the cost, let's remove cost there. And then from the equation that was given, so I will say time or delta time. From here, time is given by the speed, it's given by speed. No, it's distance, distance over the speed. Are we good, right?
yes, sir.
The distance that we have is 500 kilometers. So I don't know whether they are working in kilometers or meter, but I'll keep it in kilometers for now. So I've got 500 kilometers. Now check what they said. They say where x is the speed of the ship in kilometer. So that means I need to divide that by the speed, and then the speed, we know it's actually x. So that means 500 over x must multiply that amount here. It must also multiply this amount here. Then I add them up. That's the logic that's coming in my head. So in my head, I can now write cost, the total cost. It's gonna be the 1,000 times that 500 over x, because that's the number of hours here. So I will take the 500 and then I'm gonna divide that by the x, and then I'm gonna times that by 1,000. There we go. Then plus that would be for the labor. Now for this one here, I'll take 500 over x times 4x. So which means I also need to take 500 and then divide that by the x. Then I'm gonna need to times that by the 4. I believe it's x squared. That's what the logic says. Now let's see if we can simplify that into that equation. So I've got 5,000 times that number, so it's 500 times 1,000. I've got 500,000. There is a 500,000 there. It will be over the x. All right, so we have 500,000 divided by the x. I didn't even lay the background, I just forgot, sorry. And then if you're dealing with like term, you know that x will cancel one of the x, so you're left with 4x. So that means 500 times 4x. So we'll take 500 times the 4. All right, that's 200. So we now have plus 2,000. Why do I call that x? We have a 2,000x. Yeah, there we go. I've got it. Now, so this C, it's basically your cost, and this is your equation, my dear friend. Because normally when it comes to application, you must have the equation of what you are dealing with. If it's area, the one of area. If it's volume, for volume. If it's speed, speed. If it's cost, cost. Then when they ask you maximum or minimum, you just do the derivative equals to 0, like how you do the turning point. All right, so we can go to the next question. Watch what they say. They say, at what speed should the ship travel on this 500-kilometer trip to keep the total cost as low as possible? Now they're talking as low. Low simply means as minimum. We want to keep that as minimum. So we're talking about minimum turning point. So let first derivative equals to 0. So I need to rewrite that equation in a nice, beautiful way. So it's going to be cost, it's going to be 500,000 for me. And then I need to multiply that by x to the exponent of -1. Then plus the 2,000 so that I'm able to derive that. Now we can let the derivative of cos equals to 0. So I can write that. I said, maybe I can do this. I can just write that like this for C minimum, for C to be minimum. And then I'm going to write let C prime, the derivative, equals to 0. That is like finding turning point. You good?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's derive that equation. So when I derive it, I'm going to have negative 500,000. It's going to be x to the -2. Then plus 2,000. And then I need to equate that to 0. Now I need to solve for x. So we already know this is the same as negative 500,000. If you write it with as a fraction, it's basically all over x squared. All right. Then I can transpose, let me transpose the 210s or the 2,000 to the other side. All right, it's going to be minus, let's not forget that. Multiply by x squared, so that means I now have negative 500,000 equals to negative 2,000 x squared. Then we can do our own calculation. Well, since the question ends here, I don't have to go any further, but let me just go here, the other side here. So that means now I can now write x squared equals 2. So I'm going to have to divide my 500,000 divided by 2,000. I've got 250. Now, when you're finding x, you say x equals to, remember you have to take the square root of the answer. All right, there it is. So I can call that 15,81, or the other one will be x, because it's a square root, it's plus or minus. It's going to be negative 15,81. Well, when you're dealing with the speed, you cannot make it minus. That will mean it's in a reverse. So this one is not applicable. All right. but this is, remember x is your speed, that will be in kilometers per hour then. Now let's see what they wanted me to find. They say at what speed. All right, so we gave them the speed. There it is. Okay, so we can now write kilometers per hour. That will be the speed thereof. So our question, it's fully done.